Hi, I'm Jelle.
Hi, I'm Steven.
Yeah, all right.
What are we going to talk about, Jelle?
Well, for the people watching, let's talk about something relevant. .NET Aspire is something that I've been looking into. It's an opinionated stack, as they call it, and I am also quite opinionated, so I have an opinion on it.
Perfect guy for this.
Yes, so I love that even though it's not an ASP.NET thing, they've called it ASP Aspire. I love that they can't seem to let go, so this will make Googling it so much easier. But have you heard of .NET Aspire?
Because I was really into the new .NET release, and it was heavily demoed and talked about, and for me, kind of just, they threw it out from, oh, we got this as well. So I'm really curious to your take on it and what it can do. But I think it can really help us as developers. And I think especially for me personally, my local development, it can really help me waste less time, I think.
Yeah, so one of the things that I'm really happy with that is getting more and more focus is that we're working with ever more complicated, complex setups. Like when I start, so this is going to be Grandpa talking
War
about
stories.
But when I was young, you just had a big monolith, and there was a database. You could run those locally. They connected to each other. That's all you needed to know. And now we have microservice.
Press F5, you could get a cup of coffee, but when you came back, it just worked and it kept working. And
a big cup of coffee back then, but now it's getting more complex. I think I think some developers love it, that you have to, on production, you're running microservices in a container with all kinds of configurations that may or may not be generic. There's a lot of options where you're perfecting your user's experience and making it as technically robust as possible. Doing it hybridly in the cloud and some local on-prem stuff, really cool. But now as a developer, I need to work on that locally, and I'm like, okay, I've got it working. I'd rather not touch it anymore, because if I change something, it might break. But I think that we need to change stuff sometimes.
Yeah, personally, I'm just, because the cool thing about those microservices and small services, if you want to make a change, you like, oh, this is easy, it's contained. My change is, that's very fast. But then you got to test your integration, and you're like, okay, so this will take another few hours.
So I've been to a lot of customers where this kind of concern was a thing, where especially developers starting out and feeling like my responsibility is writing code, right? Okay, maybe adding unit tests, but that's my responsibility. And you're like, yes, but very much no. You'll need to know about a lot of other things, and many of those things are only specific to this workspace and maybe even this project. You'll need to know a lot of stuff that is not traditionally developer-like. I would argue that's fine. Developing has become a lot easier, so it's okay for us to broaden our horizon. But we may have gotten into a bit of a, that is becoming too complex. We may need to simplify it, because that's very possible, not easy,
and
but
for
possible.
me, it's one major thing is I don't really want to do it. I just want it to work, and just trust on it, and just focus on writing code and developing solutions.
Yes. So basically, this is an exercise. .NET Aspire is an exercise in consolidating a lot of slightly different implementations into a standard way, working in a what Microsoft and many developers that have been informing Microsoft see as a kind of a standard working environment. You may have heard of Project Thai. It will have been mentioned in the presentations. That has been working as kind of a pilot, would be very, very mean to say, but they've used all the feedback from that. So there's a lot of community-wide thought that's been put into how .NET Aspire is trying to help developers focus on developing.
Yeah.
So has it succeeded? We could take a look.
I'm very curious.
I think the most important part is that I'm very much a big fan of the standardizing. and I think we can look into that a bit later. But there's a lot of different components, and a component is a way that .NET Aspire is calling all the dependencies that you can add in a very, very standardized way. And I think we are used to thinking, oh, we're already doing a lot of stuff in a very standardized way, and now it's actually standardized, and I'm like, okay, yeah, this makes sense.
That's a lot.
Great idea, thank you. So .NET Aspire is not something that's built into every project at the moment. So you'll need to, well, you've asked me about this before, but you'll need to download a workload. But that's if you install Visual Studio, you can just say,
it's quite easy to
I want that one.
Edit.
And if you have an existing project, I can show this.
What if you're working in Visual Studio Code? Can you also use Aspire, or is it for now Visual Studio itself?
If you can, but I think I think you lose some of the awesome integration that's in Visual Studio.
It's more command line and more basic.
Yeah, so command line. Unfortunately for me, I am very much not a command line kind of guy, but community-wide, apparently we are, and I'll need to manage that. So if I want to have an existing project, this is not an existing project, but a demo project, but I can basically just say, okay, I want to add .NET Aspire. So I think I clicked somewhere wrong. But it will be one of the options here. It's not here at the moment.
So you can add it to your existing project without creating a new solution and migrating everything to it.
Yes, and that's, I think, my first biggest gripe. So we talked about microservices. So I have my microservices spread out over different solutions. What .NET Aspire does, I'll just show it here, because this is the .NET Aspire starter demo app. It adds an app host project and a service defaults project to a web and API service default. So this is just
so the API service and the web are your existing microservices in this case, and
then those will be added if you turn a project into or if you turn a solution into an Aspire solution, which is really cool. But one of the things that it does quite well is communicate across all the projects within that solution. And if you want to manage multiple solutions and you want to make sure that the communication works, I'll get less abstract as we go along. I'm not seeing that yet. I think this is more of a.
But is that something they acknowledged, and is it on a roadmap or not yet?
It's new, so no. We're first talking about how awesome this is. It's awesome, and then we're talking about so in next versions, this and this will be required. I think one of the first things that we'll need is some kind of way of communication across solutions. Because that's how many people build apps nowadays.
Yeah, of course, because you want
one giant product, it's separated over multiple solutions, and that's not the power of Aspire at the moment. So, what is the power of Aspire? I'll show the projects, and then we'll take a look at the documentation. So, basically, what we have, the app host. This is where the magic happens, and you can already see what this does. This is the standardized way I was talking about of adding dependencies. So there's a lot of different dependencies. We'll look at the documentation later. And you can also reference your projects. So I can make my front end and back end reference each other, which is really cool. Nice. And you can see that my web app has a reference to Redis. And it also has a reference to my API project. And it works like this. That's really cool.
Nice.
Basically, they do have an actual reference to each other. But basically, I'm telling Aspire when I want to orchestrate it like this, and that's it can be really powerful to just tell Aspire.
Yeah, because you get one place where you can just define your infrastructure.
Yes.
And where you can look at the code and see, okay, this is how it works, and these are the dependencies. And
yes, so basically from an architecture point of view, this is awesome.
You could just put it on a wiki and say, we got an architecture
I've done my work,
diagram.
money please. So, but they also add this default, which is basically all the extensions you might want to use. So service defaults, and then we get into the cool stuff. Basically, whatever you add, however you're working, we can get OpenTelemetry by default. We can get some default health checks, but you can also configure all of these a bit more if you want to.
So these are the things that normally would be in the programs of your project themselves.
And you might need to configure them in Azure. You might need to configure them differently depending on APIs. You might need to work around stuff that's specific to one single project with one specific dependency. This all takes care of that. If I look at how it works, basically this is going into the code, but it does a lot of things, and it basically takes away all the concerns of how do I add health checks to my applications. How do I make sure that that's present? But that's just one of the many things that can be standardized. So,
the cool thing is, if you want to change something, you only have one place where you get to change it.
Yes. So the non-cool thing is if you want to do things differently across two places. But I would say if you want to do that, you need to think about that for a few times, because are you sure you want to do things differently?
These are really things you want to standardize.
In practice, I see the need to standardize and the problem of, I forgot this project. That happens way more often than the other way around, where I'm like, this one has my default health checks. The application is ruined. That doesn't happen that often. So we have tracing, we have metrics for OpenTelemetry. We get service discovery, which is really cool. You've heard about it?
No.
Well, basically, this is just this is automatically finding all the services across all the projects. So we can. It's kind of like we're injecting the dependencies without truly configuring all the different knobs and whistles.
Okay. Sounds cool.
And we have a lot more stuff where we're basically saying, okay, this is how many developers work. If you want to work like this, it's set up for you. So I like that. Once you're driving away from being the standard, hi, I'm back. And once you're moving away from doing stuff by default or doing the default typical developer stuff, this might get in the way and you'll need to clean it up a bit. But I think this will also force us to think about why are we doing something. We have a very big lack of standards, and this may force some standards into the industry. Yeah. Okay.
Nice.
Now this is all you can get this all. This is extensions. You can use those extensions here. Mm-hmm. So what happens if you run? So basically, I can run my API service. I'll have an API. I can run my web and my API. Then I'll have.
One both.
But I can also run my app host itself, which I've configured with an architecture. And then it'll just run it will run the entire app. It will orchestrate it, and I'll as a bonus I'll get a dashboard, so you can see that it's starting Docker desktop.
We love dashboards, so that's nice.
This is the part where I'm not sure. Did I not start Docker when I woke up this morning? I may not have, but I'll. There we go. So we'll see the dashboard pop up in a moment. So first we get this. We'll get this nice.
And do you have some additional configuration inside your projects themselves, or is this the only configuration you need?
No, both. You can configure additionally.
Yeah, but you don't need references to the app host project or something like that.
In the starter project, no. If you configure it yourself, yes, you'll need to configure it correctly. So it's running somewhere. There we go. So this is where we're running, and this is my dashboard,
Wow.
and it's really cool. And we can see that I have an API service and a front end. I can go to it, and I'll go to it because I know that. So we can look at all the environment variables, and I can also go to the website. I'll just show the weather service for you because I know that you love the weather service. This is a default Blazor app for, of course, but I can also go to my API. I can. It will default to the weather forecast now, so if I go to it, it will give me the weather forecast. I know you love it. But I can also instruct it to go to, if I've configured Swagger, which .NET 8 will allow me to do that securely, I can show that here. So the dashboard really empowers me as a developer to look at the entire landscape and zoom in on what I want to see. So we also have logs, and we have structured logs by default,
awesome.
out of the box. So basically,
this is a combined log of all your services that you've connected in your
yes. So basically, Aspire allows me to have one integrated. So I've built stuff like this.
Yeah.
And usually, when I got to around this point, I was like, this really isn't my job. Why am I doing this to myself? Why? But
so much business value.
yes, I could have done something useful, but this is useful. It's just a different job, and it's now in Aspire. So I think there's a lot of other frameworks and projects and things that will provide a similar experience. But this is so out of the box. It's like I used to do dependency injection all the time. But now that it's included in .NET, I'm like, okay, but now it feels like it belongs to the package. So the integration is great.
Nice.
So that's really interesting. So let's take a look at the documentation as well to get some a bit more into the theoretics of it. So documentation, it's still in preview, and you can feel that a bit. It still feels a bit piloty. It still feels a bit like it's not fully production worthy yet, but for a developer this is gold, and I would still advise everyone to start playing with it just to get a feel for how much potential is here.
Okay.
So the one thing I mentioned earlier was all the components. So basically components are just NuGet packages.
Yeah.
Like we used to. If I want to use blob storage, I'll use the as a storage package. That's the same here, except now I'm using the Aspire NuGet package.
Okay. And Microsoft already gave us a lot of packages of components out of the box that we can use.
Yeah, so we have a lot of components, and there's components that will work cloud agnostic and Azure specific. Now, there's a lot of, like the sample projects that I was now showing, that's basically, it takes maybe 30 minutes to set up. Well, less because I have to get .NET 8 as well. It does require .NET 8, and there's, it will tell a lot of the .NET 8 features, but also a lot of the stuff that's basically available out of the box. So the service discovery is also really easy.
And what if you want, because we got this out-of-the-box components, but is it also possible to write your own components because you have a specific configuration, or is that something that you still need to do outside of Aspire?
I'm not sure about the naming. I'm not sure whether you would call it a component, but if you want to develop your own NuGet package following the standards, then that's very possible. I don't think at the moment there's much of a support for that. But
can we expect third-party libraries to add support for Aspire?
I'm pretty sure that once this catches on, once this catches on, I'm pretty sure that Microsoft is throwing this out there and hoping heavily that this catches on, because it's still clearly. It has some growing pains. It's still not fully production ready, but the potential is there, and Microsoft is really hoping that people pick up on this and provide feedback, because when, I was looking at all the demos, and the word feedback that was repeated ad nauseum. Also in that, to provide feedback, you need to, integrate Aspire with all the things that you're doing. So we mentioned Dapper and Orleans, but so we're not all working with just a basic API and a web front end. Usually we already have a lot of stuff working around it. Aspire will integrate with a lot of stuff at the moment, but also there's a few things where I would be like, this would work great together, but it currently doesn't yet.
Okay.
So all the samples here will tell you how to set up stuff that is working well together. Node, Dapper, all that kind of stuff that will work, that will complement each other instead of working against each other. So that's, I think, really, really cool.
Okay, and I see that the eShop reference project is also using .NET Aspire.
Yeah.
So that's a nice place to start.
Yes. So there's a lot of nice places to start. I think also a nice place to start is just trying to turn your existing one solution app into .NET Aspire app, just to see what happens by default, because a lot of the stuff will work.
Errors and
you'll get some errors maybe, but also a lot of stuff will work out of the box, which is really, really cool. So one thing that we all associate with cloud, because this is all about working, creating stuff that works well together, including developing for cloud.
Yeah.
One thing that we all associate with cloud is deployment. So that's one of the things where I'm like, really nothing? So what is possible is that you deploy a manifest. So let's get back to this. As you can see, I'm working in preview, which is why everyone is now doing like this, like
the white screen.
It's really white. We can add the command line, or maybe PowerShell. Let's do PowerShell. There we go. Hello mouse, let's go there. Oh, it's PowerShell. And I'll first quickly change my directory to where the app host project is.
Okay, so that's not just solution project, but the app host project
specifically. And I can just add a command to publish a manifest. It will build. I had to stop running because the first time I tried this, I got all kinds of errors, and I was like, "Oh, this is not working." And then I actually looked at the errors and I was like, "Maybe I need to stop running my app, and then it will work."
Okay.
So you can see that I've already, of course, I baked a cake in the oven before, but this is the one that's generated now. So this is a manifest that you can see that it's referencing.
So what can I see in here?
It's referencing the Redis, it's referencing the projects, it's referencing. Basically, it's writing out my entire app host in a JSON, which I can use to assist deployment.
Okay.
But I would really love for me to just
point to this file and
basically something like this should just be there, or it should be able to generate YAML files or whatever. If I integrate with the cloud, I want to be able to deploy to the cloud really quickly, and I think that's something that I think a lot of developers will want.
Yeah.
Which means that if we're lucky, it will be added really quickly. So. You asked about my opinion. Let's first hear yours. What do you think?
I think it's an awesome tool. I mean, if I look at the dashboard, that's something that's really awesome and can really help if you have multiple services running. And especially the good old days of just running F5 and everything spins up and you don't have to worry about some sort of container you forgot or shut down. That's really improving. But at the same time, what you said, I also separate my components and solutions as much as I can, because it makes deploying and changing much easier.
Yeah.
So that's really something that I would.
One thing I've been thinking about is maybe you can turn your app host project into a NuGet file, and you can bring that NuGet file to all your different solutions. Then it would be, it would be a bit more possible, but I think you'd still run into some issues. There's a solution there that I have not taken the time to find, But I'm sure that by the time I find a solution, there will be an out-of-the-box solution.
I think it's something that a lot of people will bump into. So I think we will, in the coming weeks, month, we will see a lot of potential solutions for that. And I hope Microsoft is also listening and looking at that problem and maybe introducing something that's super awesome. Because if you have this for your entire architecture landscape, that would be game changer.
Yeah, now I have the feeling like, oh, it's in reach, and now I want it. Now I'm already spoiled. Like, no, give it all. So I think so. One of my focuses always is artificial intelligence, and I just came out of the part of the hype cycle where like you might need to start looking around and getting a feel for it, because if you want to get on board, you'll need to do so now. This is the time where you need to start thinking about how to integrate AI with your business and with your development flow. Yeah. I think for Aspire, we're like that's smaller early in scope, but we're a bit earlier. Like this is the part where you can have a voice in it, and where we're like, this will solve everything. So a bit higher in the hype, a bit lower in how much value can it already add. But if this actually, if we stand here in a few years and we're introducing .NET 10 and this just works, it's not as a big a game changer maybe as AI, but it's up there. It's up there,
especially for us developers. So one thing I'm thinking of, because for us it could be very handy if you're creating demo projects. You have something that you can just run, and you know everything's tied in, and you can use the dashboard to quickly demo specific parts of your application. So for that,
I think a lot of
we can really use it.
Time wasters that we don't even take into account as developers can be solved by stuff like this. Demoing your stuff is not a time waster. I did not say that, but preparing your demo and clicking around and trying to find out where actually the part that you wanted to show is, and I forgot to spin up the API, and now my demo breaks.
Demo during
that's a time waste, and I think this is indeed a great way of going around that, and also of self-documenting code architecture, which is cool.
Yeah, so I like that you can just look at your program CS and get a quick look at how everything is tied in together. And this manifest really looks like you can see all the different bindings and configurations and connection strings and whatever. So that's really something that can really evolve into a parameter file or just YAML file or something you can really use in your deployment and just don't have to worry about it anymore.
Yeah, so I'm a bit anxious of jumping in now, because I know this will be so much better by the time that I'm working on it. But I'm cautiously wildly enthusiastic.
Me as well. We're looking forward to what's coming next.
All right, I think that's all I had to say.
Nice.
So I guess that's goodbye from me. Bye bye.
See ya.